Like, I haven't actually ever been to a book con, but like they do sound like hell at this point, so I'm not sure I ever actually want to go to one. Hey everyone, it's Dr. Hayes, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Once Upon a Con, a book convention that went wrong, because most of them seem to. I don't know why this happens to book cons specifically, they just must be cursed. So let's talk about what Once Upon a Con was reportedly meant to be before we talk about what it actually was, what actually happened. So this is their website, onceuponaconvention.com, and this is the event information. August to the 14th-17th, 2025, Gaylord National Harbour, Maryland. Join us for the nation's first fantasy book convention located in Gaylord National Harbour, Maryland. Immerse yourself in your favourite bookish worlds with over 100 vendors and guest authors, exciting panels and workshops, TTRPG room, plus our own Starfall Masquerade and high fantasy fashion show. Dress to impress for the first book-centered cosplay competition. Make new friends with over a dozen cosplay fandom meetups and so much more. So just like on paper it does sound rather fun, and there are further links on the website that go more in depth into each part of the con, like the ball and the fashion show and stuff like that, but there's quite a lot of information there, so we're not going to go into those, but the site will be linked down below if you want to go and have a further explore yourself. The most important things you really need to know is that there were going to be workshops for which the con were inviting people to teach and lead said workshops, and there was also going to be a ball, the Starfall Masquerade. So even though the event has passed, you can still click for ticket information, which details what your general admission will get you. Your general admission ticket, Friday or Saturday, $125, will give you access to choose either the Friday, Saturday, or no formal Starfall Masquerade, available at checkout until all spots have been filled. Access to the marketplace the entire time it's open, access to Author Alley the entire time it's open, access to all panels, access to all workshops. Some will require pre-registration due to materials used during the workshop, access to special events like fandom meetups, autograph sessions, meet and greets, to the 18+ Book Talk Burlesque show, the literary cosplay competition Iron Cosplay, tabletop gaming rooms, participate in the War Room themed scavenger hunt, access to the cafe, space allowing, reservations required, access to Club Once, and opportunity to purchase specialty themed drinks at local bars and restaurants and more. So that was the general admission, and you can also still see what the VIP ticket would have got you. Grab the VIP package while it lasts. The VIP level has special benefits throughout the convention, including but not limited to front of line privilege, a dedicated concierge team to ensure you get the most from your VIP privileges, a different badge design than the rest of the attendees, a souvenir bag with specialised swag, a private dinner with our inner court, priority check-in avoiding registration lines, early entry into the marketplace and other events, a VIP lounge, and more. VIP registrations can be purchased instead of regular registrations. This is not an add-on. However, I'm unsure how much the VIP ticket cost. I couldn't find the information. But anyway, those are the general details of the con, and just from that, first of all, it sounds like it'd be really fun, and it also sounds like it's been planned really, really well. It sounds like there's a lot to do, and on paper, sounds like a really great fantasy themed book convention. And I also found the screenshot from Stephanie, who we're going to revisit later and take a look at some of their videos, but the screenshot talks about how experienced the organisers of the con apparently are. Elena and Kiri have over 30 years combined in convention experience. They both have a history in convention coordination, logistic coordination, working with Gaylord staff, competitive cosplay, running panels, workshops and live events, and handling large groups of staff. There are currently over 200 staff and volunteers who are experienced and dedicated. Can't read the rest of the captions, but something success. However, we are talking about the con, so despite their reported experience, you know, something happened. And the first red flag was that the con changed locations.
So continuing to go backwards in the timeline, we get to August 2024. And this is where they announced that they were changing venues. Originally, they were in Lancaster, I think at the Marriott there, which I think is a beautiful property. I just went to ZenkaiCon there back in February, March, oh god. And it's wonderful. But when you change venues, like halfway through your planning timeline, that is a enormous risk. And it is rarely a good idea. Switching to the Gaylord National Harbor probably has its significant benefits because it's a beautiful venue. It can hold way more capacity, and if they were getting the ticket sales that they wanted, maybe it was advantageous to move to the Gaylord. But especially because it's 15 minutes from Reagan versus Lancaster. Frankly, it's really hard to get to by plane. So I understand from a purely business perspective why they switched to the Gaylord National Harbor, but it's a really big risk, because I wonder how many vendors, how many guests, authors, etc. were impacted by this venue change.
Now, I don't necessarily think it's a massive problem to switch venues. Like, often there are issues and you maybe can no longer continue with that venue, so you have no other choice but to switch. However, I definitely do think it can cause a lot of problems. And the second red flag for this event to me is when the Second Star events withdrew their involvement in Once Upon a Con. On Sunday, 10/20, Second Star Events, who were to host the 2 Starfall masquerades at Once Upon a Con, announced that they would be withdrawing from the convention due to being unable to align with leadership and provide the highest standards of integrity, transparency and respect for both their partners and attendee. Once Upon a Con also put out a statement confirming Second Star Events withdrawing, as well as Once Upon a Con, stating they'll be restructuring their entire operations to not only make their staffing consistent with convention industry standards, but also pivoting focus towards bringing the best fan-driven content that surrounds the core of the thing we love most, fantasy books. And according to Sam Boyd on TikTok, who attended the convention, there were also some obvious safety concerns right away when the con started.
From my perspective, when we first got there, we went to go check in. We weren't sure whether we needed badges. We knew that the 2 authors that we were with were probably setting up already, so we went to the registration area and they basically told us that they didn't have badges for us. Don't tell public safety because they don't want to get in trouble. There was no ID check, no nothing. They told us to walk right in. Let me show you the paper badges before I go too much further. We had general admission ones with the general admission part Sharpied out and written with author on top. They came around and gave us author ones, but we still wrote our names in.
So I've never actually been to a book con specifically before, but I have been to Comic-Con in Manchester like 7 years ago. It was a while ago, and they were super strict with tickets and security, back checks, whatever, because at the venue it was at that year, it was super busy. There were loads and loads of people. I couldn't even estimate how many people were at Comic-Con. Some were dressed normally like me, some were in cosplay. Everyone was searched, absolutely everyone was searched, because there are obvious security concerns with an event that large, so that is definitely a massive red flag for me. Sam also says they all wanted to go to the burlesque show, but they couldn't because it was cancelled.
Friday night, one of our authors that we were with really wanted to go see burlesque. Well, that was canceled. We were told the troupe couldn't make it, and that was it.
And at first, hearing that the show was cancelled, you're probably like, well, life happens. The people who were doing the burlesque show might not have been well, or there were unforeseen travel restrictions, cancellations, whatever. There's some other issue, life happens. However, it seems that wasn't the case.
And then later on found out that there was an issue with the rooms. Again, we didn't have this issue because number one, I drove home because I'm only about 45 minutes away, but also I was only staying Saturday night and our lovely, wonderful authors purchased that room for us. But apparently we found out that there was an issue with not booking staff rooms. Now, I cannot speak on that because I was not staff, I was not an author, I'm not in the Discord, I have no proof of anything that happened. I can only speak on what I saw.
Now, as Sam says in the video, they can't say for certain as they're not on the staff for this con. However, more things started happening, such as panels being cancelled.
So, I saw cancellations of a lot of panels, a lot of events, a lot of workshops, a lot of things got canceled. There were some empty tables inside of the main area where Author Alley and then the vendor marketplace were, whether they couldn't set up and said F this or whatever happened. We knew that the previous convention had run late and then there were issues with the people setting up Thursday night, but you know, they quickly got everything in and there were some layout issues for the authors, but everything seemed to get settled pretty quickly.
So obviously I looked more into this and I found this video from The Legend of Emily.
Con failed to prepay for the hotel rooms at the Gaylord National Harbor. Sometimes this happens. I've been to other events where this happens, but usually the convention rectifies it very quickly. I've been a guest as well as a staff volunteer getting like a hotel room at previous events. So asking anyone, especially the people who you hired to come work for you, to put down money for a hotel is completely unreasonable. So they alerted Once Upon a Con's chairs about this problem yesterday, and the Gaylord National Harbor could not get a hold of them last night, and as of right now, it's 5:30 right now on Friday, it still hasn't been fixed. So a lot of the guest presenters and some of the staff volunteers are like, I'm out, I can't afford this, and they're leaving. So that's really bad, which means that all those sold out workshops this weekend that were presented by very talented and very popular people like Casey Renee Cosplay just aren't going to happen. So that already diminishes your reputation in both the attendee base as well as for people like us who are hired to come put on workshops at these big fandom events.
So while I think this happening wasn't necessarily a intentional mistake, that they intentionally didn't pay for people's rooms or something happened, but as Emily said, asking the staff to pay is unreasonable, and apparently the chairs at Once Upon a Con were also unavailable, which stopped parts of the con from going ahead, parts of the con that people had paid for. And according to this article, even more things were cancelled. The cosplay competition was cancelled entirely. Mind you, these craftsmanship competitions are how cosplayers spend a lot of their money for a con. People wasted a huge chunk of their time and money to enter their cosplays into this competition, and the entire thing just ended up getting cancelled before they could even begin prejudging. The VIP banquet was also cancelled, which is insane considering ticket price, and the tea party event held for the affiliates of the con had no food, drink or decor, so people were being turned away for that too. Panels had no staff to run them, many were getting rescheduled or cancelled, which confused the original panellists, and a huge chunk of the staff walked out due to the failure of compensation from the con organisers. So like I said before, things happen. It's natural that some people might have been ill and unable to attend last minute, so things had to be cancelled. That's fine, you can't control that. And I don't think anyone reasonable would have got angry about that. They might have been disappointed, but not angry. But something should have been done about the hotel rooms, since that was a significant barrier to these people being able to attend and work at this con, which significantly impacted the experience of this con. But oh my god, I then found this video from Stephanie, and oh my god, the scream I scrumped when I watched this, like, just no.
I can't believe I'm making this TikTok. A lot of you follow me because you found me after the A Million Lives, or should I call it lies, debacle that happened back in May, when myself and hundreds of other people, maybe not quite hundreds, well, there were at least 100 authors, and maybe 100 guests, so maybe hundreds is accurate, were basically scammed by Archer management. And we had our fantasy ball that was a little sprinkling of rose petals on a table, a DJ named Steve that was a JBL speaker that was lent to us by a security guard, and so on and so forth. I did get a refund for my table, which was honestly the biggest shock of my life. But there are still many, many, many other authors who have been waiting and waiting and waiting to get a refund, not only for the table from May, but also for tables they purchased for next year's event. That's not going to even happen.
So if you don't know what A Million Lives was, I did do a video about it on a while ago, but the short version is, it was a book con earlier this year. Authors who signed up to vend were told, hey, we sold a lot of tickets, it's definitely worth it, you should totally come. So they did go and vend there, but basically no one showed up. The ball they had was just a room with chairs and a speaker. It was just an absolute disaster, basically.
After A Million Lives ended, we received an invitation from the oh so gracious con chairs, Kiri and Elena, who run Once Upon a Con. Now, that should have been our first red flag, just the name itself, but I digress.
Honestly, yeah, the name is quite funny.
They felt so bad about how we were treated, and they wanted to show us what a real event, what a real fantasy book event should actually be like, and how incredible a real ball would be, and they wanted to invite us to come as attending authors at their event this past August at the Gaylord in Maryland. And because of our horrible experience, they wanted to offer us a free table.
Which, without knowing what I know, is honestly so lovely and kind of generous of them, since A Million Lives was an absolute disaster.
One of my friends, Atlas, he had extensively asked them all these questions, and they came back with really great answers. From the outside, it looked like they had everything together, they had experience, they knew what they were doing, they had all these incredible plans. It sounded like an amazing event. And so, hey, why not? It's a free table. I was able to get free childcare because my in-laws live nearby, and we were able to use points to get rooms at the Gaylord. So overall, the risk was not that high financially. They kept telling us that they'd sold over 5,000 tickets, which after experiencing AML and having 100 people maybe show up, the idea of 5,000 people is massive. And they're saying, oh yeah, you should buy 5 to 10% of books per person. For us, that would have been looking at buying possibly 500 plus books for this event. And that's a lot of money to spend on books. We decided to just buy what we could afford. And if we sold out, we sold out, which would be great, right?
So another red flag after the name was the badges.
Let's get to the week of the con. We're excited. We're a little bit scared. Things are going wrong. They told us that the badges were stuck, you know, in a storm somewhere, and like they were not going to be able to mail out the badges in time, but it's going to be okay. And, you know, after having the badges for AML arrive shattered, I was kind of like, okay, really? Badges? What else can go wrong? It's gonna be fine. There's gonna be 5,000 people there, right? We'll sell books.
But then Stephanie, the night before the con starts, is at her in-laws and starts to see the chaos basically start to unfold on Discord.
Thursday night, I am staying at my in-laws' house. We were gonna get up really early to drive up Friday to unload and get ready for Author Alley Marketplace, which is gonna be open from like 12 to 6:30 or something. And I start seeing the Discord just blowing up on my phone, and people don't have rooms to stay in. They're doing this bar crawl, but none of the bars have the recipes for the drinks that they're supposed to be they're like, this bar doesn't know what we're talking about. And there's just all these things that just are sending up red flags, and I am like, I cannot believe this. Please tell me there's gonna be tables. Like, people were supposed to be loading in Thursday and they were having issues, and I just was having flashbacks.
So it sounds like these issues didn't directly affect Stephanie, since it sounds like she was staying with her in-laws and didn't go on this pub crawl, but because she was at A Million Lives, I just feel so bad for her that she basically had to go through all of this again. However, I found this video from Jen, and they knew people volunteering at the con who had to pay for their own rooms.
It was about this time that I had also been noticing the issues with the room block from the night before, because I had friends who were supposed to be volunteering and staff, and they had been forced to get their own rooms the night before because the con chair's card had been bricked by the Gaylord, allegedly. Allegedly that's what happened, and it was never fixed over the course of the weekend.
So according to this article, the hotel rooms were compensation for working the con. So the biggest mishap so far, in my opinion, is that judges and staff weren't given the hotel rooms they were promised, which is how they were supposed to be compensated for their work. Some waited 6+ hours in the lobby before paying out of pocket for a con they are working at. It was just an absolute whole mess. But anyway, back to Stephanie's video.
We were promised that we were going to show up and have a table and chairs, tablecloth, water bottles, and a small trash can for trash. We showed up and there was a table and like a tablecloth. And they told us the tablecloths were gonna be purple, but they were definitely not purple. They were just black tablecloths, which is fine. That is the least of my problems. I brought my own water bottles, which I'm glad I did, because there were no water bottles. I think a few vendors might have bought water bottles and passed some out on like Saturday, but really, yeah, already that was a promise broken.
And you know, don't get me wrong, I know no tablecloths or the wrong tablecloths is only a small thing in comparison to people not getting their promised accommodation for working the con, but just in general it just sets an overall precedent for things going wrong and the overall disorganization of the con, you know?
Secondly, we were also told that the VIPs would be coming in with doubloons that they could exchange for any book of their choice as long as it's not a special edition. Immediately on Friday, most of the people that came in the beginning were VIPs, and they turned in their doubloons, and we were told that we would get paid by the end of the weekend. Well, spoiler alert, we still have not gotten paid.
And like, don't get me wrong, I really like the idea of this doubloons for the books, but it's not a good idea if the authors then don't get paid. I don't care if it was only one book they gave in exchange for a doubloon, or 50 in exchange for the doubloons. They should have been paid immediately. Like, it was just awful.
Now, if we go back to the doubloons, my understanding is that there were about 250 VIPs who were given 2 doubloons each to make up for the fact that their VIP bags were basically empty and that their VIP events were canceled. Now, there was really not much direction given on what the doubloons were worth. We were just told no special edition books. So they could have ranged from $10 to $30. I have no idea. Say they were $20 a piece. That is $10,000 worth of fake money that was spread through the marketplace. And as far as I can tell, they did not have the money to back that up, because even though they promised to pay us at the end of the event, they did not pay us at the end of the event. And should the VIPs have been given these doubloons to cover up for their mistakes? Absolutely not. Not if they didn't have the money to pay us back, because we did not agree to give them a small business loan. And now we have authors who are out hundreds to thousands of dollars, and the contras might as well have just taken those books off the table and walked away with them. They stole money from us. They stole our product and handed it off. with no intention of paying us back. I mean, maybe they want to pay us back, but with what money? And if they do have money, why haven't they done it yet? Because it is now September 7th, and we've already passed 2 pay dates. They told us, oh, we have to wait for Tixer to pay us out for all the tickets, and it's not going to be till the 29th. Well, nobody got paid as far as I can tell. We were told that we were going to get paid on the 4th. Nobody got paid on the 4th. People are supposed to get paid on the 18th. I highly doubt anyone's going to get paid on the 18th. I still haven't seen an email that would tell me and my co-author when we're going to get our money back. Anybody who was owed more than $200, as far as we can tell, has not gotten any kind of email giving them an idea of when they're going to get their money back. At the end of the event, we were told to give our final doubloon count and best emails for contact and reimbursement, and that we would be reimbursed as soon as possible, and that did not happen.
It's just honestly disgusting. I dread to think how much money Once Upon a Con owes to each of these authors. But now let's talk about the ball, which Sam touches on.
The ball. Let's talk about the ball. We went to have dinner at the sports bar downstairs, and we kept seeing people, like, we knew we were going to be late. We had heard that it was actual, like, ballroom type music, and we were like, okay, we're going to go, but we're not in a rush, right? So we had dinner at the sports bar, and we just kept seeing all these people that we had seen originally heading towards the ball coming back, and we're like, that's not a good sign, right? Ended up going into the ball for a total of 5 minutes, and we left. Probably about 9-10 o'clock, they were teaching people how to ballroom dance. And in my opinion, that could have been done, if I was in charge, that would have been done as like a workshop prior to, or in the beginning of the ball, so that everybody was on the same page, not like smack dab in the middle of it. So all in all, we didn't stay very long at the ball. It just wasn't the vibe.
And if by ball they meant like a proper ball, as in with ballroom dancing, then yes, I definitely agree there should have been lessons, which honestly I would have been fine with. I went to a really weird high school. We were taught how to ballroom dance. So I would have been fine. I'd be like, yeah, there's a ball, let's go. I'm ready for any ball. However, nowhere on the website does it say that there would be ballroom dancing. What is the Starfall Masquerade? The Starfall Masquerade is a formal event that pays homage to the meteor showers seen over the Alpine mountain range in Europe during the winter ball season. It is an event that brings together all walks of life to celebrate in the revelry of the evening as equals. Originally a scandalous night of anonymity, I really struggle with that word, I'm sorry. We invite you to don your favourite mask and join us on the dance floor for the nation's largest masked ball. Choose your Starfall Masquerade. You get to choose the theme you want to attend. Both Starfall Masquerades are from 8 PM to 11 PM and include an exclusive 18+ rave after party from 11 PM to 2 AM. I personally have never worn a corset before, but I cannot imagine having to go to a rave in one. I'd go home and get changed, or back to the hotel room and get changed. But anyway, you can check the rest of the site for more details. However, I couldn't see anything, couldn't find anything that said ballroom dancing would be expected. And perhaps you think people should assume that there would be, but most people don't know how to do that. Like, I do, and the only people I've ever met who also know how to is everyone else I went to high school with. So me and all my brothers, because we all went to the same high school, all know how to. But for example, when I went to college, no one else there knew. When I went to university, no one else there knew how to. Like, I don't really think it's a common skill to be able to ballroom dance. Just most people don't know, apart from the entire population of my high school. Like I said, since leaving high school, I have never met anyone else who knows how to ballroom dance. I know there will be other people, but I think it's a few and far between sort of thing. So I really think most people would have got a ball ticket expecting it to be a slightly formal party, and there would have been dancing, but not necessarily actual ballroom dancing. So yeah, I definitely think there should have been a dancing workshop. And Stephanie also talks about the ball.
The ball that they promised, it was underwhelming. I mean, it was a room. It was prettier than the dungeon of AML, but there were no decorations. There was a DJ. The best part were the people in costumes, because hello, they know how to cosplay, and people really dressed up. We ended up leaving early and going bull riding because it just wasn't, nothing was really happening. The only time that I saw the con chairs the entire weekend was Saturday night when I snuck into the ball because there was literally no security. And I was curious if it was any better than the Friday night ball. But yeah, that was the only time I saw the con chairs, and they were up on the stage drinking from the bottle, looking like they were having the time of their lives. You know, I don't know what that says about them, but anyway.
Honestly, it sounds like the con chairs were the only people who really enjoyed the ball. But just in general, their enjoyment of the event didn't seem to last very long.
Every update they give us is focused purely on how their mental health is struggling and how they can no longer answer questions, and they will email us, although every single one of my emails has gone on unanswered since August. Now, it's disappointing and enraging to me that we were fed so many lies and basically left holding a worthless bag of doubloons at the end of it all.
So while I can definitely understand their mental health taking an obvious hit after this, they did fail a lot of people, and they do need to make it right. When you organise something like this and it goes wrong, it's on you. It's your responsibility to make it right. And the owners being unreachable is a common theme, as Jen talks about in this video.
So, for the most part, there weren't a ton of red flags until we got close to the event. I started to get concerned when I had applied for several panels, got them, but when I got the email that I'd been accepted as a panelist, there were no details about which of the panels I had been accepted for. And then when I reached out, I had to actually get in touch with them through Instagram because emails weren't working. That eventually got handled, and again, I was just really excited for this convention.
Jen also talks about chaos in the Discord server.
Continued to watch things just like degrade on the Discord. This is also when I joined the public Discord because I really wanted to see how the attendees were feeling about things. They were not happy. And the word refund had apparently been like banned or muted on the server. Anyone who tried to use refund, their messages weren't going through, which is not a great look.
That is honestly awful, but it gets worse.
On Monday, at some point, I'm not entirely sure when, I went to check the public Discord. I had done my like post-event posts to be like, hey, thank you for stopping by my booth. If you like Sapphic Urban Fantasy, feel free to like look me up. These are my socials, yada yada yada. And I wanted to check on it just to make sure I didn't have any messages from readers that I had missed, only to find that the entire public Once Upon a Con Discord had been nuked. What do I mean by nuked? I mean that you can't see any of the previous posts. Nothing. Not announcements, not stuff from authors, not stuff from attendees, not trinket swaps, none of it. It is all under adjusted permissions right now.
Like, as I was doing all the research for this video and I heard there was a Discord server, I was like, oh, maybe I should try and find a link to join it or whatever, get more information. But obviously I could not. I also did find a post on Reddit that said there was also underage drinking going on at the ball. Safety concern, underage drinking. Now this, I am still unsure of who to blame, the conchairs, the Gaylord, or both. Drink tickets could be purchased and exchanged for an alcoholic drink during both the Friday night and Saturday night balls. No one ID'd. There was no ID check when buying the tickets and then no ID check when exchanging the tickets with the bartender. Now, as this person says, they're not sure if it's the fault of Once Upon a Con, or the convention centre, or a mixture, but in assuming underage drinking did indeed happen, regardless of who is at fault, it's still awful that it happened, and there were also further issues according to this Reddit thread. Safety concerns, weapons. No weapons were to be allowed at the convention, including for cosplay. This of course makes sense. However, at no point were bag checks, costume checks, etc. for weapons. Someone could have had what looked like a fake dagger but was actually real. I'll never know. It made me and others very uncomfortable. Safety concern, badge checks. At registration, our tickets were never scanned. I showed them my Eventbrite, but they never once scanned the QR code, checked my ID, or just generally made sure I was who I said I was, or that I'd actually paid for what I said I paid for. This means anyone could have been coming and going. One of the staff members flat out told me that iPads they had at registration weren't being used because, well, they didn't know how to use them. Pre-convention information. Information was really hard to come across if you didn't know about the Discord group or the non-official Facebook group. I frequently checked the official website for information, but there were maps, guides, schedules, etc. It appeared like nothing had been planned for months on end. Little did I know, it was all happening on Discord. This is an accessibility issue, as not everyone uses social media or all types of social media. There are several things I didn't know about until the day of that required extra purchases because I wasn't on Discord. This is not the proper way to inform your guests and staff. All information should be on the official website for everyone to access. Signage. The Gaylord has electronic screens outside each convention space, but they weren't utilised. They just said Once Upon a Con, so it became incredibly difficult to know what room a panel was being hosted in. Again, like pre-convention information, you had to turn to Discord or Guidebook, an app that was only available a week or so before the event and was never updated. This meant you had no idea your panels were moved or cancelled unless you managed to find the room, and then only if anyone else showed up. War Room. War Room was supposed to be a scavenger hunt-like event based off Fourth Wing. Attendees were cadets in teams of 3 to 4 and were supposed to solve riddles, puzzles, find things, etc. throughout the week for points. At the end of the weekend, the winning team were promised challenge coins and flak jackets. This went wrong almost immediately when started packets were nowhere to be found. No one had any information on where they were or how to find them. At 1:15 AM, Friday night, Saturday morning, the con chairs posted in the Discord that the event would be restarting at 8:30 AM. This poor communication meant that most people were asleep during that message and didn't make the 8:30 AM start. Once it did start though, there was another snafu with a third challenge, finding dragon eggs. Hours passed by until the dragon eggs were eventually placed around to find. We were supposed to only take pictures of them, but of course they went missing and the majority of the teams hit a dead end. At the end of the convention, one team was announced the winner after points were tallied, but in no way was a point system ever shared. I know my team finished 2 challenges, but this was never recorded. So just overall, it basically seemed like it wasn't good. So that definitely seems to be the gist of everything that happened, or at least everything that I could find that happened. So now we're going to look at the responses, for which there are 2, the first being a response from the actors who were at the ball. Statement from members of the cast at Once Upon a Con. Hello, we the undersigned were hired as part of the cast at Once Upon a Con, where we were contracted to play different characters from the book series A Court of Thorns and Roses. Until now, many of us have remained quiet online for both our own safety and because, truthfully, we had very little concrete information. However, given the understandable frustration in the community and the spreading of misinformation following the events, we felt it important to share our perspective as the cast members who remain for the entire convention. First and foremost, we, as cast members, face many of the same challenges as most staff members, as well as what was encountered by those that had to make the difficult decision to leave. We were not provided lodging, meals, or handlers by the con. Furthermore, there was a lack of communication with those leading up to and during the con. We ended up having to pay for our own accommodations, cover our own meals and water, and any gatherings we had were personal, off-the-clock moments where we leaned on each other for support. Despite these difficulties, we stayed on site and remained committed to the guests who invested their time and money to be there. Our focus was giving them the best experience possible under the circumstances. During breaks and off hours, we worked together to keep spirits up and to bring some light to the event, because that's what our job and our passion is about. The only reason we were able to push through was because of the incredible interactions with attendees, the camaraderie of our fellow cast members, the kindness of staff, and the volunteers who stood beside us. For that, we are deeply grateful. Like everyone else, we are still waiting for official statements and reimbursements, and we hope that clarity will come soon. Until then, please know we did our very best to uphold professionalism, to support each other, and to deliver what joy we could. Thank you to everyone who showed us patience, encouragement, and understanding in such a difficult situation. As a group, this will be the only statement we make regarding our experiences at Once Upon a Con, and we are only speaking on behalf of those that signed. And then you can see the name of the actor and then the role from Akatar that they were playing. So I don't really blame the actors for any of this mess. It sounds like they were trying to make the best of a bad situation, you know. I just wanted to include the statement in this video so we have a look at everything. Plus, as well, like they say in this statement, they signed a contract, so like I'm not sure what kind of like legal ramifications it could have that Once Upon a Con basically didn't hold up their end of the deal. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure because I haven't seen the contract, but definitely not good for Once Upon a Con. And I did also find this video on Twitter from one of the actors from the con who I don't think was signed here, and they were like, it was during the con, they were discussing their experience. It does reiterate a lot of the things already spoken about, and it's also very long, so I decided not to include it, but I will link it down below for you if you are interested to go and check it out. So now let's read the official response from Once Upon a Con that was posted on their Instagram. Hi everyone, we want to take a moment to express our heartfelt gratitude for the incredible dedication each of you demonstrated this past weekend. Despite the challenges we faced, your unwavering commitment to excellence shone through in everything you did. Your ability to come together as a team, support each other, and push through adversity exemplifies the true spirit of our organisation. Thank you for your hard work, resilience, and for embodying the values we stand for. Together, we overcame obstacles and achieved great things that made magic happen for so many. We faced a lot of issues this weekend, and we would like to touch on those, as well as what we're doing on the leadership side as far as corrective actions. Staff lodging and crash space. We committed to providing rooms and crash space for staff who worked more than 20 hours. Due to unforeseen issues with our bank, this was not fully met from our side. To mitigate the impact, personal cards were used to cover as many hotel expenses as possible. If you were promised crash space and had to put down your own card for a room, please email address with the following information: number of people in the room, whether those individuals were also staff, dates of stay, departments represented, copy of your final bill. We will reach out to those who submit information to this email address to arrange proper reimbursements. All reimbursements will begin processing no later than August 29th, 2025. Author payments. VIPs were issued doubloons, redeemable for one free regular paperback from authors. The attendees were unclear which books qualified for these coins, which caused confusion on the author end, and for that we are sorry. We will not be using these doubloons in the future. If it was an idea that was added to the mix and not properly executed. If you accepted these and submitted them to the registration team at the end of each day, we will be contacting you to process payment. Kiri will reach out no later than August 20th to confirm the cost of your books collected via the doubloons and what payment method you prefer. Author reimbursements will begin no later than August 29th. Penelope Penguin merchandise. We did not meet the pre-order minimum for Year 1 penguins. This was not properly communicated by Elena, leaving the board with the impression that although Tyrus were also a concern, they were not the only one. We are in discussions with Squishable to remedy this and plan to bring Penelope the Penguin to life for Volume 2. Emails will be sent to each person who pre-ordered Penelope to explain exactly what we are stating here, as well as updates as they become available through Squishable. We remain committed to featuring this product line as part of the magic of Once Upon a Con in future years, and will continue to work towards this. Board of Directors update. After discussions between the new board members and Elena, the decision was made for her to step down in all capacities. This change reflects our commitment to addressing organisational weaknesses that create unnecessary challenges and building a stronger foundation for the future, and helps us ensure effective communication and successful execution of future events. Elena fully supports and agrees with this decision and the direction of the board members. 2 new members have joined the board directors. Kira brings extensive live event experience, with a background built from working major conventions like Biggest Little FurCon, Painted Desert FurCon, Denver, Everfree Northwest, and Anthro Northwest, among many others. Tucker, an entertainment and hospitality veteran with over 10 years of experience in live events and touring production leadership, further strengthening our operational expertise. With fresh perspectives and diverse skill sets, our board is positioned to guide Once Upon a Con toward a stronger, more sustainable future. Currently, no formal titles have been decided as all 3 board members, Kira, Tucker, Kiri, are working equally to cover all tasks moving forward. Streamlining the schedule. Over the past year and a half, we added a variety of smaller events and activities that, while enjoyable, diluted the precision and focus required to deliver our main events at the highest standard. Moving forward, our schedule will be more streamlined, with fewer overlapping side events, ensuring that our primary programming is executed at the quality level you expect from us. This streamlined approach also strengthens communication between departments by reducing logistical complexity and providing clearer direction for each segment of our organisation and the volunteers and staff that help support it. Marketplace and Author Alley improvements. Last-minute schedule changes in Marketplace and Author Alley created confusion and frustration for vendors. Moving forward, knowledgeable staff members will be stationed in the vending hall during load-in and load-out to provide immediate assistance and keep the process running smoothly. For future events, we also plan on bringing in pipe and drape from an external vendor to ensure a consistent, professional look throughout the whole vendor hall and clearly defined vendor spaces. Addressing load-in miscommunications. Miscommunication between Once Upon a Con and the Gaylord regarding load-in times contributed to delays at the dock. Once Upon a Con was informed that Hall E would be available Thursday at 4 PM, but it was not made clear that this referred only to the hall itself and not the dock. Because union workers are required to operate without outside interference for safety and contractual reasons, the dock was temporarily closed until the loadout was complete. We want to reiterate that the results of this past weekend is no way a reflection of our staff and volunteers. This event would not have happened without them, and they chose to stay, to work in difficult conditions to provide the best experience they could for attendees. These are hard-working people, many of which have plenty of experience in this field. They did what they could to provide a positive end-user experience. For that, we cannot thank them enough. We know these changes will make all the difference to create a core experience of community and fantasy, and our dedication to bringing fantasy to life through this event. We are committed to demonstrating clear expectations for our attendees and creating lasting fantasy memories. Sorry, it was rather long, and honestly, I don't think it was necessarily a bad response. They did address the majority of the issues I found online that people were talking about. I would say the only thing they didn't really seem to address was the ball. But I am a little confused about the new hires on this board are meant to be ultra experienced. but so are the last ones apparently. And then the Penelope Penguin merchandise, I think this refers to a plushie. I saw it talked about and I was a bit confused. There's supposed to be a plushie that was available at the con, but apparently it was never ordered, but the con goers didn't know that because, again, lack of communications, definitely a theme for what happened here. And while I am glad they've said they will be reimbursing authors for the doubloons, it doesn't seem like all authors have gotten them yet. And I am making this video like a whole month after after this has happened. So yeah, so I'm not sure if the compensation for the rooms is being slow to happen either. But assuming they do follow through with everything they said they would, I don't think it's a bad response, but that obviously doesn't stop the event from being bad in the first place and things happening that never should. Like apparently staff were trying to check into the hotel and get into a room while one of the chairs was walking in the fashion show. So yeah, that is everything I could find, but if you were in attendance at the con, I'd love to know your experience and of course if I missed anything out. But yeah, I think that was everything. So I'd love to know what you think about what happened at Once Upon a Con, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!